coming in today, if you'd like to tell me about your experience that you had that was possibly paranormal.
Well, basically, I was getting married and I was supposed to be, the car was picking me up from the home, but one of my elderly neighbours died and her funeral was on the same day, so we moved the wedding party. So at the last minute, we booked a hotel. We chose the hotel. I didn't know anything about it, but my husband's company used to use the hotel a lot to put up VIPs, so we thought it'd be a nice place. We booked into the hotel and we booked in for 2 nights, and the first night I was staying on my own to keep with the tradition. My husband left, we had a meal together, he left and I went to bed, and then about 5 to 12 I woke up and I just had a weird feeling, I'll be honest with you, something just didn't feel right. And the next thing is the phone next to me rang. I picked it up and there's a little boy on the phone going, "Mummy, mummy, I'm lost, I don't know where I am." This went on for a few minutes. It was quite repetitive. I couldn't get any information about where he was. I was trying to tell him to stay where he was and describe where he was, and he just kept going over the same thing. The line went dead, so I immediately rang down to reception and I said to them, "There's a boy lost in the hotel, he's just rang me." And they told me, it was a guy on the phone, he told me to forget about it. And I'm not going to forget about it. It seemed quite serious. We got into a little bit of like conflict over it, and in the end he said, "It's the ghost. Don't worry about it." I then put the room we were staying in, because it was in the countryside. There was no my phone couldn't get a signal, so there was no signal from a mobile. And basically what I did was I went on Facebook, because we had the internet through the hotel, we booked it through the hotel, and I posted immediately what had happened, because I was doing psychology at the time and I kind of thought it was important to document it, and it was the only means that I had to do it. So I documented it. My husband, who was an hour away, he saw it and immediately come back, which was quite funny for the rest of the night. We all sat there convincing ourselves we could spot ghosts and everything. The next morning when we got up, the hotel were very much about us hushing it up. They didn't want us talking about it, although the staff were coming up going, "Are you the lady who saw the ghost?" or heard
So
the
they
ghost.
knew.
Yeah. And that really was the end of it. But what we found out afterwards was the hotel used to be a priest school, and what used to happen was in Ireland they were taking boys from families in Ireland when the families couldn't afford to keep the children, and they'd be sent off to this school to be taught to become priests. And there were 6 graves at the back of the hotel, which we found later on, and it was of 6 boys that had been buried there. Really? But they didn't know who the parents were, because when they took them, records weren't kept and nobody claimed the bodies, so they were just buried on the ground. There was other stuff as well, but we actually found out later, because a group of the boys that stayed there formed a group to try and get some of the priests, a particular priest, prosecuted because of abuse that was happening with boys in their care. And we found that this priest had been moved on. He'd been found out what he was doing, and what they'd done is covered it up, the priest, and moved him on to another boys' home. And we found some unusual things with photographs, which tie in with photographs from my wedding. Yeah. There was like there was an unusual mark on some of the photos, like a lightning shot. And when we actually tracked down photos of this particular priest, on this photo you see him like doing mass with all these boys, and there's this same kind of like lightning shot through the photo. Right. I actually posted all these photos again on Facebook, and I just said, being like a cynic, I'm just saying, I'd like impartial opinions, and a lot of people were coming back saying, "That's him, isn't it?" from the photo on this site where they're trying to get this crime prosecuted. So the photos that we found of the archives online. So that was just another interesting twist on it, really. So whether that's anything, I don't know.
Were you quite scared when it happened, when you realised it was possibly a ghost?
Not really.
No.
To be honest, there was something that happened when I first arrived at the hotel room, because you ever see CSI?
Yeah.
And they call particular hotel rooms Murder Central in CSI because of where the position. And when we actually walked into the hotel room and I saw the room where I was staying, I just stopped myself walking and I just went, "Oh, Murder Central," to my husband. Oh, well, he wasn't my husband at the time. He went, "What?" I said, "So I've just got a weird feeling about this room." I said, because the way it was positioned, it was on a corridor, so everyone that was walking down the corridor could see into this room. So my first thought was, it's a weirdo in the hotel, and he's seeing, I'm a woman staying on my own, he's seeing through this thinger, and he's trying to, it's just some sort of weirdo staying in the hotel. I even kind of thought that it was the guy on the reception, because he was a male and it was a boy. I kind of accused him, and I said, "Are you? Is it a wind up? Are you trying to get publicity for the hotel, etc." And the other thing was, later on, I found online that buried somewhere in the archives that on something like TripAdvisor, a woman had put on that she'd stayed in this room on her own, and the same thing had happened to her some years before. So, but like I say, I always try and look for a rational explanation.
Well, yes, you would do,
it could be that the hotel were trying to get publicity, because it does kind of boost, and they've done it to a woman on their own again. You know, it doesn't necessarily forego that it is a ghost. It just means you're an easy target, maybe, or something. So
you would go back there then?
Oh yeah, we go back every year on our anniversary, and I take like EMF readers and everything, but they won't allow us in the room, and I think they shut the room down. Because every time I ask for that room, they go quiet and they go, "I'm sorry, it's not available. It's not available." We can book 6 months in advance, and it's never available.
Could be it's happened to a few people then, maybe.
Possibly, but when you go around that room on the outside with an EMF reader, they go crazy. They absolutely go crazy. But my husband has got a degree in aerospace engineering and electronics, so he's always looking for is there something electronic? We both are. It's an interesting story.
No, definitely, that's great. And thanks very much for telling us about it today. Thank you very much. Thank you.